We begin in Grindavík. You can feel the tension here. It is not a noise, it is a frequency. This is a town that lives in the pause between inhalations. The streets are grid-planned, the harbor is industrious, but everything has the temporary quality of a camp set up in a firing line. We are not staying. To understand why this town is always looking over its shoulder, we have to go to the source. As the town limits fade, the horizon is dominated by the shield of Fagradalsfjall. That eruption is a different chapter in the Reykjanes series. Effusive, red, spectacular. But not today. Today we are hunting something older and, arguably, more insidious. The landscape stops pretending to be green. The ocean drops out of the story, and the world narrows into a corridor of debris. First, you hit the texture of Katlahraun, a frozen river of 1200-degree basalt that hit the sea 2 millennia ago. It didn't just cool, it shattered into a chaotic, sharp-edged wreckage of clinker, the earth trying to heal a wound and failing. Then the texture shifts to sound at Krýsuvíkurberg. In summer, the air is a physical wall of tens of thousands of screaming seabirds and the ammonia tang of guano, a sensory assault that vanishes in late August, leaving the cliff as just a silent, towering cross-section of previous catastrophes stacked like pages in a closed book. The set gets struck. The noise goes with it. Finally, the violence changes color at Grænavatn. It appears as a deep, impossible turquoise iris staring up from the rust-red soil. Not a postcard, but a chemical bruise left when magma flashed to steam and blasted a crater dozens of meters into the bedrock. And then, the smell hits you. Again. You are slowly getting used to it, aren't you? It is a heavy, pervasive density that clings to the fibers of your coat and settles in the back of your throat. It is the scent of the mantle. It is the breath of a dragon that is not sleeping, but waiting. We have arrived at Seltún. The ground beneath your boots is a lie. We are told land is static, a platform where history happens. But that is not true here. Here, the terrain is a kinetic participant. The moss, the clay, the wooden boardwalk, it is all just a deceptive, fragile veneer stretched taut over a high-pressure reality where the crust is thin. This is not sightseeing, it's diagnostics. To the uninitiated, this looks like a scenic hillside of steam. But to the deep-time geologist, Seltún is a diagnostic site. You are standing on the exhaust port of a massive vertical convective loop where, just 1 kilometer down, the rock is cooking at over 200 degrees Celsius. Along the boardwalk, the sound changes. It isn't the roar of a fire. It is the wet, rhythmic thumping of mud pots. It is a heavy, viscous percussion, a wet suction followed by a hiss, sounding like the earth is digesting something. You don't just smell the sulfur here, you wear it. The air has weight. On a cold day, the steam condenses on your eyelashes and leaves a faint, metallic taste on your lips. It feels thicker than oxygen. You can feel the heat rising in pulses through the soles of your boots, a vibration that travels up the leg and reminds you that the barrier between you and the heat source below is negligibly thin. The wind here is not just weather, it is a safety mechanism. It decides what you can breathe. You can feel it choosing winners and losers in real time. If the wind dies down, the gas pools, and the boardwalk becomes a trap. The mechanics are brutal. Rainwater filters down through the fractured basalt, hits the magmatic stove burner below, and rushes back up in a panic, bringing the chemistry of the deep earth with it. You can read the violence in the palette. This is not decoration. It is the chemical record of a mountain being eaten alive. The yellow crystals are native sulfur, precipitated directly from the steam and reforming endlessly in the heat. Among the wreckage, these crystals form structures of unexpected, delicate beauty, fragile enough to crumble at a touch. The deep red is hematite, the iron in the lava rusting as it bleeds out. Framing it all is the white ghost of the rock, the silica and gypsum left behind after the sulfuric acid has stripped everything else away. It is literally dissolving the landscape from the inside out, a rapid chemical decay occurring in real time. Humans have tried to monetize this decay, and the land has always punished them for it. In the 18th century, the Danish crown attempted to mine this sulfur to make gunpowder. It was a miserable failure. The acid ate their tools, the isolation ate their minds, and the logistics of hauling brimstone across the lava fields broke their resolve. More recently, in the late 90s, modern engineers drilled a borehole here, trying to tap the energy. The system rejected the intrusion. It triggered a blowout that blasted a new crater into existence, throwing mud and rock into the air. The plumbing is unstable. We are just visitors walking on the skin of a boiler. The steam falls away behind you. The air loses its chemical bite. The landscape goes quiet. And then the world opens into the abyss. Kleifarvatn. This is the largest lake on the peninsula, but do not mistake it for a recreational body of water. It is a dark, heavy instrument panel. There are no rivers flowing into it, and there are no rivers flowing out of it. It is a massive, exposed window into the groundwater table, perched directly on top of the active fissure zone. Back in Grindavík, you felt the tension as a frequency. Here, you can see what that frequency belongs to. It acts as a pressure gauge for the entire region. The atmosphere here is different. The water doesn't sparkle. It absorbs the light. It has a density to it, a black gravity that seems to pull the silence down from the mountains. On a still day, there is no sound of waves, no rustle of vegetation, just the wind moving over cold basalt. It is a place of profound, mechanical stillness. But sometimes, the needle moves. In June 2000, nature pulled the plug. 2 major earthquakes struck South Iceland, and the seismic waves triggered fault movements right here, beneath the water. Thousands of micro-fissures tore open on the lakebed, and Kleifarvatn began to drain. It was a slow-motion trauma. The lake lost a fifth of its surface area, the water level dropping drastically. It wasn't just a receding tide, it was a psychological shock. The receding water revealed strange mud formations and boiling hot springs that had been hidden for centuries. It changed the shape of the coast in a matter of weeks. It showed us exactly how temporary the map really is. If you stand by the shore now, in the silence, you might remember the folklore. They say a monster lives here, a worm-like serpent that has circled the depths since the settlement. When the lake drained, people actually walked the shoreline looking for the carcass. They didn't find it. They assumed the monster hid in the deep fissures, but they are missing the point. The monster isn't in the lake. The monster is the lake. The monster is the tectonic plate itself, shifting, cracking, and breathing beneath the black water. This is the diagnosis of the peninsula. It starts with the open wound at Seltún, dissolving in acid and heat. It ends here, at Kleifarvatn, a cold, silent gauge waiting for the next rupture. That is the loop, the tension, the release, the silence. You felt it as a frequency in the town. You saw it as a gauge in the water. And the whole time, you were standing on a thin crust, pretending to be land. Everything here is temporary. The lake drains, the steam moves, the system stays awake. And that sulfur smell? Check your coat. It is still there. It followed you. It will stay with you.
Gunnar leaves you with the smell. He tells you to check your coat to see whether the sulfur of Krýsuvík did its job. It did. That was not fantasy. It was evidence. Steam, acid, heat, and a crust thin enough to make solid ground sound like groundless optimism. If you want to keep this perspective independent, do the useful thing right now. Subscribe to Iceland Explained on YouTube, like this episode, leave a comment, share it with someone who still thinks steam is scenery, and follow the show on every podcast platform. It is not decoration. It is a filter. The ones who want the bones under the postcard stay. The ones chasing Instagram garbage with rental car confidence and no survival instinct worth documenting can keep driving until physics gets personal. For the material that cannot fit into a narrative episode, go to icelandexplained.com. That is our diagnostic hub, where we keep the unspoken articles, the raw source data, and the vetted gear and services we actually trust when Iceland starts behaving like Iceland. The Buy Me a Coffee link in the description is the fuel line for this entire operation. We don't do corporate sludge, tourist board perfume, or the soft little lies normally poured over this island for comfort. We provide excellence, and we expect a fair trade. Our editorial independence for your support. The tip jar is open. Call it the sanity tax. Your next story to listen to, and the next place to move through, is Reykjavik, where the same sulfur leaves the hillside, enters the pipes, heats the showers, warms the sidewalks, fills the pools, and turns a capital city into a bunker with plumbing. Or, if your route bends inland from here, the Golden Circle playlist becomes the next pressure system. Fissures, boiling water, waterfalls, crowds, and tectonic violence dressed up as public theater. There is no clean exit from this system, only a sharper lens. This is Iceland Explained. We deliver you clarity. We serve you reality. We give you the anatomy beneath the illusion. A story, not a guide.